start our babka, this is a yeast-based kind of bread cake, so we need yeast. This is about a half a cup of take two. All right, so to make our babka, we first need yeast. And to proof our yeast, you need some liquid. And for this recipe, we're using a half a cup of cream. I sort of mixed the cream a little bit with milk to kind of cut it a little bit because it was a little thick. Whole milk can also work. And we need to put in a packet of yeast. And if you've got a jar, basically 2 1/4 teaspoons of this equals a packet of yeast. And we're talking a 1/4 ounce yeast packet. So 1, and you're just going to sprinkle this on top of your warm milk. Milk can't be too hot. If it's too hot, your yeast won't proof. You'll kind of kill it. So that's 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. The other thing we're going to do is a pinch of sugar. Just gives them a little food to get going. Let this sit for about 5 to 10 minutes, and the yeast are going to kind of wake up and eat the sugars and start proofing, which is like all this foamy stuff is going to show up on the top. That's when you know your yeast is good to go and to add into our mix. Let's get our mix going. All right, we're going to mix our dry ingredients first. We're going to start with the paddle and then move to the kneading hook. We've got a lot of flour, 4 1/4 cups. To this, we're going to add a half a teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/3 cup of sugar, and 1 1/2 teaspoons of fine sea salt. Now we're just going to mix this a little bit just to get it combined. I've also had 4 eggs sitting at room temperature, and I just cracked them and just gave them a light whisk. And I'm setting that aside as well. All right, our yeast is starting to foam, as you can see. Get up closer, you can see where it's foaming. You can even smell the yeast kind of working. So it's all ready to get added to our dry mixture. We're gonna set the paddle down, get it on low, and add our yeast. All right, we got our yeast in there. Now we're going to add our slightly beaten 4 eggs that were at room temperature. And mix that in. We're going to scrape the sides as we go. And before we get too far, I also want to add my vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon. So this mixture is pretty crumbly, and I should mention you can also use a food processor. If things get too sticky along the sides of the bowl, you can sprinkle in a little extra flour just to keep things moving. At this point, I want to get it a little closer together, so I'm going to go for another maybe minute. And then I'm going to start adding butter. I've got 10 tablespoons that's been sitting at room temperature, nice and soft. We're going to add half, and then another half. Okay. You can see here, things are kind of coming together. This is where I want to add the butter. And like I said, I'm just going to add half and get it kneaded in there. I'm going to stay with the paddle to get this first half of butter in, and then I'm going to move to the kneading hook. All right, things are looking really soft and elasticy, which is great. So now we're going to add the other half of our butter, and at this point, yeah, we really do need the kneading hook. In fact, the paddle was having a little bit of trouble. So kind of cut the rest of this in. This is really the magic of babka, because all this gets kind of swirled in almost like a giant croissant. Kneading hook. And we're going to go for another couple minutes. You basically keep kneading it until it basically forms into this really lovely, very elasticy dough. So, we're going to grab this out of here, move to our work table. So here's our dough, and I have a big bowl that I've basically rubbed butter all over the sides. Are you seeing a theme here? Butter, butter everywhere. Now, the recipe says, roll the dough around so it's nicely covered with butter. All right. Off it goes in a corner. We'll check back in a couple hours. Okay, it's been 2 hours. Let's take a look at our little babka. Oh, it grew a little bit. Didn't double, but it did grow. So at this point, what you're gonna do is just gonna pound it down. I'm gonna keep the saran wrap. Pound it. And now, cover it again. And it's gonna sit overnight in the refrigerator. I've taken the dough out and it was pretty stiff. So I've let it sit out for about a half hour or so until it's, able to be rolled out. And you're gonna split the dough in two. This actually makes 2 babkas. So it's great if you wanna bake one for today and then, you can bake, actually you can bake both of them and just, store one in the freezer. They freeze really well, so. And the goal here is to roll this out to a 9 by 17 rectangle. So what I like to do here is kind of use my hands and shape it into a rectangle to sort of get things started. That way the rolling pin doesn't need to work so hard and the shape doesn't get weird. All right, that's feeling good. I'm gonna get my rolling pin. Okay, we've rolled this out to roughly that 9 by 17 rectangle. It's pretty long. If you're a little over, no big deal. If it's not perfect, no big deal. The idea here now is to fill this with chocolate. Now, the New York Times recipe I'm basing this off of has a really great filling recipe in there, and the chef actually used kind of adapted a frosting recipe. I'm going to use Nutella because we love Nutella, and Nutella makes a great filling for lots of things. So for each babka, you're going to be using about 3/4 of a cup of Nutella or a chocolate hazelnut spread of your choice. And you don't need to leave a border. And just spread this around. Okay, now that you've got this totally filled, you're going to start on your long side and twist this. Not twist this, sorry, but roll it. I got my babka directions confused there. You will be twisting here shortly, but okay, that's nice and rolled up. That's nice and rolled up. We're gonna do that again with the other piece of dough. All right, so we've got these tightly rolled up and I threw them on a baking sheet. We're going to chill them in the freezer for about 10 minutes. And why we're doing that is because we're going to cut these down the middle, and the firmer they are, the easier it is to cut. All right, so we have 2 of these ready to go. I sprayed them down with nonstick cooking spray liberally, and then I placed some parchment paper kind of nestled in there so that I could just pull up the babkas once they're done. Put it on our work surface, and we're just going to cut it down the middle. Then you're going to do this double helix thing. fold it over once on itself. And in it goes. Do that again with your other one. All right, these are ready to rise one more time for about an hour and a half. So you're going to put them in a dark corner. Warm-ish would be nice, or we're wanting them to be puffy, not necessarily doubled. We're going to cover them with a lint-free towel, like a flour sack towel. If you need some flour sack towels, come to the shop. I've designed quite a few cute ones. Shameless plug. And we'll check on these in about an hour and a half. Our babka's almost ready to get baked off. So I wanted to prep the streusel so it was ready to go. And it's really easy. You need a ½ cup of all-purpose flour. I got about 4½ tablespoons of butter that I've melted. I am going to add 3 tablespoons of sugar. You also need a little cocoa, about 1½ tablespoons. Give this a good stir. Now, like any other streusel, in the dry ingredients, you're going to melt the butter. Make sure the butter is evenly distributed until clumps form. And then finally, we're going to add 1/3 cup of semi-sweet mini chocolate chips. All right, they've been sitting for an hour and a half. They have puffed up, but like I mentioned, they're not going to double per se. And I'm going to take half of my crumble get it all nestled up in there. Our oven is at 350. It just beeped at me, so these are going to go in for about 40 to 50 minutes. They need to give you some rubbery resistance to the touch, nice and golden, and when you pull them out, they're supposed to sound kind of hollow on the bottom if you tap them, so that's how you know that they're done. And the parchment is going to help us pull them out. So in the oven they go. We'll check in at around, so it's just under an hour, about 40 to 50 minutes. Okay, it's been about 45 minutes. Isn't she beautiful? Lovely, lovely. So, bounces to the touch. I'm going to let it, actually I don't think I'm going to let it sit in the pan. It's kind of hot. I think I want to cool them down. So, just pull them right out. I'm going to get a cooling rack and get them to cool off on the baking rack, using the parchment paper to pull them out. That's Friday to Flora. My mouth's full again. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Get baking. Woo! Subscribe to the channel. Stay up on all the fun. Stop by the shop. Do some shopping. Mother's Day's coming up. I've got really fun things for moms. Anyway, thanks for your support. Bye!